Let's date forever. Here's your weekly dose of relationship fuel with Sammy and Nathan Yeager. Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting about the key questions to ask in a weekly check-in chat, how decluttering your home can make your relationship better, creating a humming household using automation, collecting moments and not things, and the 14.4 minutes to a better life. But before we dive into that, Sammy, what's been fueling you up this week?
It's been the week of live music.
It has been.
Yeah, we went dancing on Friday night. We got to see Tiesto live.
Yeah, he's still got it.
Still got it in his 50s? 60s.
50s. Yeah.
And we danced our asses off, didn't we?
Yeah, it was so fun.
Yeah, and then I think like 48 hours later, we headed off to another gig to see Florence and the Machine. And oh my gosh, what a voice.
Yeah.
So the cute story about Florence and the Machine is that when Nathan and I were in Edinburgh in Scotland back in 2019, we were there during the Fringe Festival, and it had kind of been a bit of a detour as part of our Europe trip. It wasn't planned as such. We just ended up finding ourselves there at the time that the festival was on. And we were crossing a park and we could hear just this angelic voice. And we were like, we have to explore what that is. So we went closer and closer and closer to it until we realized that it was a Florence and the Machine concert in the park.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get tickets. It was sold out. So we listened to the entire gig from the fence line.
Peeking over the fence.
Yeah. So it was an absolute treat to finally see this band live in a theatre, and it by far exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, it was really amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, Florence is just so talented, but it also was just such a really nice experience to me. Like, music is one of those things that really gets through to me when I'm open to it. And I really had a lot of like emotions stirred up like during the gig. So yeah, that really, really filled me up. I just feel so grateful, and how amazing that people have such unique talents.
Yeah, it is really amazing, isn't it? And the two gigs were very kind of polar opposite.
Yeah, weren't they? One seated, one standing, one dance music, one... I don't even know what genre you would say this is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But both incredible in their own right. So, yeah, that definitely fueled me up this week too.
Was that your fuel up, or did you have something else?
No, that was my fuel up.
But it also meant we had heaps of like quality time together this last week.
Yeah. This is a result of our binge buying of tickets post-COVID lockdowns. We were on a little bit of a buying spree, I guess, as all the artists started coming back to Australia as well. So it's been a real treat over the last few months, going to lots of live gigs and, yeah, really refueling that. I don't even know what tank that fits into, probably self-tank, around, live music and really being truly present in some of those environments. So let's switch gears now and start talking all about fueling up our humming household tank. So let's introduce this week's guest.
Today we have Bridget Johns joining us. Bridget is a city girl that moved to the country 18 years ago, vowing it would just be a 2-year stint, and then she married a farmer. She now happily lives on a sheep and cereal farm with her husband and 2 children on the Yorke Peninsula of South Australia. Bridget is an organisation expert and founder of Be Simply Free, a professional organising and grant writing business. She teaches women how to reduce their mental load and find more time to collect moments, not things, by decluttering their homes, calendars, and minds. Bridget is also a grant writer, and she uses her organisation skills to help businesses, councils, and community groups organise their wish lists of dreams into fundable projects and find grants to help turn those ideas into a reality. Thirdly, but most importantly, Bridget is a farmer's wife, a mother to Mr. 11 and Miss 9, and lives on a broad-acre cropping and sheep farm on the Yorke Peninsula of South Australia. She was a busy, stressed, overcommitted perfectionist who found that by minimising the stuff in her home and her mind, she could live a much happier, joyful, and meaningful life. And now she helps women do the same thing. Welcome to the show, Bridget.
Thank you for having me.
We are excited to have this conversation because we're kind of opposite. You went from city to farm and I went from farm to city. So if you've listened to the show before, you would have heard Nathan and I talk about that we grew up in the Barossa Valley, which is an hour or so from Adelaide, which is the main city in South Australia. And now we live in Sydney, in the big city. So I want to hear a little bit about how you moved to the country with just intention and how you've ended up staying there. Because so much of our show, we talk about an intentional, fueled up life. And obviously you found something that really fueled you up. So maybe take us way back to pre-farmer husband, pre-children.
Yes.
How did you end up in the country?
Yeah, well, I studied a Bachelor of Food Technology and Management, actually. I felt that studying food was something that's always going to have a career path. And then straight out of university, I got a job in Maitland, which is in the middle of the Yorke Peninsula, as a food industry development officer. And I went and did the interview thinking it would be like a good practice run, never expected to get the job. And I still remember my boss said on the phone call to give me the opportunity to take the job, how do you think you went? And I'm like, I know the book work, but I don't have the street smarts yet in that experience. He's like, that's very true. You're a green frog, but I'm willing to give you a go. So I'm so grateful that he did that just over 18 years ago. And yeah, that was my plan, to move from Adelaide to the country, then probably head over to where you guys are in Sydney or Melbourne or London. But fate had another plan for me, and 3 months after moving to the country, I met my now husband, Mr. Farmer, who I affectionately call him, at the local pub.
Of course, it was the local pub. It was going to be the local pub or the footy club.
Yeah, it was probably after a footy match or something.
Yeah, it was probably both, right?
Yep. And I played for a different club, so we did that whole move of following the partner to their club. But yeah, met playing a game of pool at the local pub. I still wasn't sure about hooking up with a country boy. I joked to girlfriends before I met him that I was never going to kiss a country boy, date a country boy, or live on a farm. And I failed miserably at that, but it's been the most wonderful life that I have then recrafted in a new location and reskilled and focused more on my project management skills, and completed my MBA over online technology. Did a 16-year career in state government, but then when the role no longer was supporting my soul and it was really crushing my soul, it wasn't what I wanted to do. I said, if time and money were no object, what would I do? And that was to be a professional organizer. So now I combine my old skills of project management and grant writing with helping people to declutter the most important thing and project manage the most important thing in their life, which is their home and their relationships, so they can free up some of that mental load to enjoy more time with the people they love. And my big mantra is to collect more moments and less things. We're always going to have stuff, but let's focus on more of those moments together.
Yeah. So in making that move, like, this was a while ago now, but in making that move out of the city, like, what were some of the lifestyle things that you kind of noticed that were different, or like that kind of attracted you to stick around?
Yeah, it's quite funny that my boss said I could live within 50 Ks of the town where the office was. And being a city slicker, I picked the town that had the Woolworths and the gym. So very city girl focused. And that was more of the hub. And yeah, probably ended up how I met my husband. There was a bigger town there. But that was I've moved straight out of home into a house that was for rent. And I think even 18 years ago, we still had this housing and rental issues even back then. So I was in a house that was for sale while I was living in it. So I was on a 1 month. If anyone ever wanted to buy it, I had a month to get out. And then through the pub again, I met someone that I could house share with. And then 2 years into our relationship, we moved in together, and he moved straight from his parents' farm and living with his parents to moving in with me. And we were quite open about that discussion of that division of labour. And I was a bit worried coming straight from living with his parents, living together, but we had those discussions early on to set those ground rules of what it would look like for us to live together.
So we did the same. Very, very similar. So Nathan and I lived together in our first home outside of our parents' home together, but we were not a couple. we were living together as housemates. So we had front row seats to how one another learnt some of those foundational adult skills, like food shopping and cooking and cleaning and, how much does a block of cheese cost? All of those that transition from parents' home to your own home. And we got to do that together, and it was actually in that year that we fell in love.
So I think we found that there was a lot of similarities in the way that we do things, or we kind of cared about the same things, and we worked really well together as housemates and as, maybe a little bit more than that. But like you said, it can be a pretty tricky thing to navigate as well, and trying to work out what that division of labour looks like, especially if you have just moved straight out from your parents' place or been with some other housemates or whatever, or if you've not lived with anyone before, it can be that really challenging thing.
Or you've lived alone for a long time too. You might have had housemates in the past and then been on your own, because I know that I've had girlfriends go through that, where they've lived on their own for quite a while, then got into a long-term relationship. Like, I kind of like living the way that I live. Do I really want to move in? Yeah. So before we get into what makes a great humming household and the project management skills that you've been able to deploy to make that a little easier, I'm curious, did you fall in love with just the farmer, or did you actually fall in love with living in the country?
I think, that's a really good question. I think I fell in love with the farmer, and that I felt that I could live anywhere, like I wasn't attached to a place. But then when you do marry a farmer, their assets are based in a region, and it's much trickier to move them around. So I think I fell in love with the farmer first, but definitely love this lifestyle, particularly in those lockdown periods when I had acres of space to be able to do a walk within my property, still following the rules, and being able to send the kids outside to get that fresh air and to play and be able to ride around on a motorbike. I'm not sure how a lot of families cope, particularly in Melbourne, with those 250 plus days living in an apartment. That would have been very challenging. That country life, as a lot of people talk about, it is a beautiful lifestyle. There are obviously challenges that you are professional gamblers in a way as a farmer. We are totally reliant on the weather that we get, and currently we can see those extremes all the way across Australia with drought and floods right now. So that is challenging for me as a city girl. I didn't understand that. And I suppose that's also why I have my own business, to diversify that, to reduce our risk, so we can continue to live a life that we love and provide opportunities for ourselves and our kids as well.
Yeah, awesome. So talk to us a little bit about your business and being an organisation expert. You talked a little bit about the project management part, but did you go through an extreme moment yourself where you were like, we've just got to simplify? Talk me through, how did you even end up with this as an interest?
Yeah. And we now have the 2 kids. And when I came back from maternity leave with my second child, who was a daughter, I think she was about 1, and I was working in the education department, supporting engagement and wellbeing and resilience in people. I can tell you everything to do to support your own wellbeing, but I wasn't actually practicing what I was preaching. And we were talking about a community event around Are You OK Day? And I'm like, we can do this, this, and this. And it just made me, I think it was just a little penny drop. It's like, wow, I can help everyone else do it, but if I'm not doing that for myself, I can't support this wonderful life that I've been building over time. So I held it all together in that meeting and went out into my car and just burst into tears, and then called my boss and just explained how I was feeling, and that a lot of it was, I think most of it was self-imposed perfectionism, that I thought I needed to be a full-time worker in part-time hours. I'd come from having a full-time, I wasn't working and was being a full-time mum to 2 kids, and I felt I needed to continue doing that when I didn't have the same amount of time in a day. My husband was more than willing to help, but I'd been doing all this stuff, so I felt like I had to keep doing it. So a breakdown to my boss, and we really stripped back those expectations I put on myself, and work out was most important in my work life. Then I went home and burst into tears to my husband, and he's like, you don't have to do it on your own. We're a team, and we can break that down and work out who's doing what. And that was just a big relief moment for me. So that would have been probably 2014 14 or 15. And then we took baby steps together to work out what our version of a decluttered life looked like, because we could think of professional organisers as decluttering our physical spaces, but I'm a huge believer that we need to declutter not only our homes, but our calendars of all those excess appointments that we have in our with our time, and our minds too, because it's that mental load that was really impacting me, that I was holding on to the expectation I needed to do it all and holding it in my head, but I needed to communicate it not only in my work life, but my personal life too. So we can now, spend more time together doing family fun time, couple time, one-on-one time with the kids. And we just took baby steps over a couple of years to do that. And as I was sharing that journey anonymously through an Instagram blog, I realized more people wanted to know how I did it and shorten the process for them, so I could tell them some hints and tips to make it a quicker process, so it wasn't a couple of years for them to get to their version of a decluttered life. Because there's not one version, we need to find out our own.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the big breakthroughs I had around this sort of stuff was I read Sarah Knight's book, The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yeah.
And she talks about this idea of a fuck budget, and that we've only got a certain amount of time, money, and energy to spend. And how do you want to spend it? And are you currently spending it on things that fuel you up, or are you spending it on all of the things that you think you need to do, or you feel obligated to do in some kind of way, or they're really not for you, but you're doing them under duress because you're not willing to have the conversation that would free you from that. And I had a coach who'd said to me, for everything that you say yes to, it means you're saying no to something else. And I'd heard that, and I thought I kind of got it. But when I read this book by Sarah, it really helped me go, yeah, no, I there's some things in my life that I don't want to be doing. There's some people in my life that really shouldn't be as close to me as what I've allowed them to be. And it was even now I don't think we're quite perfect at it. We still have work to do. But from our first year living in Sydney, we flew home to South Australia, I think 7 or 8 times for events, people, experiences, things that we felt we needed to be there for.
And they were potentially other people's we were fulfilling what we thought were their expectations, when maybe their expectations weren't actually that.
Yeah. And it was hard because we were struggling to establish our new life, because we were spending so much time flying back to visit our old life, and it really did hurt. And not just from all of those things that we just mentioned, like the time, the money, and the energy. And I don't regret any of those events and experiences and opportunities that we got as a result of that, but it definitely did encourage us to get a bit more considered. Because on the flip side, we were also having a lot of people come and visit us and see us in our brand new exciting life and place. And lots of people had never had an excuse to come to Sydney before, so they were embracing that opportunity. And I remember one day we sat down and we were like, we've had 8 weekends in a row back to back of either being away or having visitors. We cannot keep doing this.
Yeah.
We've had no time to do laundry or food shopping or nurture new friendships. And we just knew, okay, that's enough. Something has to change.
Yeah, and that's what I talk about with my clients and myself. Whatever I talk to with my clients is normally something I've gone through myself and with my family. I tell myself to stop, focus, and notice. So stop doing the same thing over and over again. We can get caught in the hamster wheel of how things currently work, and then focus on what an issue is and what we're coming up against, and notice what options we have for solving it. And the power of no is a big thing that I have to practice myself, and it's a forever thing that we all have to build up. And it does get easier the more we say it, and it can be super intimidating to say, no, sorry, we can't come back this weekend, and feel like we have to give an excuse, like there must be a wedding or some huge event that we can't come back to visit you. But we have to nurture ourselves, and the reason we sort of have weekends is a bit of that recharge and to enjoy ourselves out of a normal job environment. So if we're going back to back to back with all these commitments, it's tiring, and it's not looking after ourselves, because we need to look after ourselves to have the energy to do all the things we want to do. So yeah, we really need to practice that no, but to know what that life you want it to look like. Maybe it is stepping back and going, okay, let's make sure there's one free weekend a month. And that's something we've only just done in the last 6 months or so, because we can cram so much in, but the whole family. And once you get kids, they particularly need rest as well, but we do as adults as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also super interesting how it's kind of like that thing that you can have too much of a good thing, right? It's like things that sometimes might fuel you up, you know, like going to concerts or seeing friends or going to those beautiful events like weddings or going out for dinner with people that you haven't seen for a long time. Like all of those things can really add fuel to your various tanks, whether it's like relationship or network or, you know, fun and new experiences and all those kind of things. But when you are doing all of those things all of the time, it actually can have the opposite effect.
Yeah, 100%.
Where it depletes you and drains your tank, not fills it. I do think it's a really tricky balance to sort of, find like the threshold. And that's something that I've been struggling with, like post 2022 global pandemic, going from being a very social, active person, not thinking anything of going to networking events or industry events or concerts or gigs or weeknight dinners, to like now if I get an invite on a school night, I'm like, maybe, is that worth putting on pants for? Like, I still haven't quite recalibrated, because I don't want to spend all my nights on the couch or in my cocoon, but I don't think I've quite found the right balance for that yet.
Yeah, and there's different seasons, even like we have seasons in an actual year, but we can have different seasons in our lives as well. And we can go and have a busy time, but then maybe slow down for a couple of months and then work out what the balance and in between is as well. So I think it's a continual stop, focus, notice process and see where your energy levels are. And also for women, we have a cycle and that affects our energy levels as well. We need to take that into account. And it's only something I'm learning more about as well. So yeah, physically we have differing energy over those 4 weeks of a month.
Yeah, for sure. So if we are kind of noticing that our life is feeling a bit cluttered or getting a little bit overwhelming, you kind of mentioned that there is quite a number of aspects that can be kind of contributing to that, like your career or your home life or like the actual running of your household, or it could be your social calendar or things like that. So how do we start to sort of unpack what areas of life we might need to focus on first to try and declutter?
Yeah, and I like to look at, people may have heard of a wheel of life, which looks at all the aspects of your life. I encourage people to think about that, but also think about a wheel of home for your physical spaces of how you feel in different spaces. So like even a lot of people don't even take the time to think of giving their relationship a score from 1 to 10, or how their finances are going, or how they're feeling in their job or their a business or career. So even just taking the time to think about those elements in your life. And same with the home. I encourage people to literally make a list of all the spaces in their home and how they're feeling in those, because a lot of the time when we're surrounded by physical clutter, that can make us quite anxious, overwhelmed. It can take a lot of time to tidy up and clear up too. So getting that baseline data, and then stop, focus, notice and look at that and see which elements you want to focus on first. And the key step is first there, because we can't do it all. We've only got 1,440 minutes in our day, but I do believe everyone can find 1% of their day to make a change, which is 14.4 minutes. So like if we can all just set a timer for 15 minutes and maybe it's clear off that kitchen bench, so when you're coming home that's clearer, or spend 15 minutes looking at your finance, like going through your app of your bank statement to see where you're spending money. But like that, whatever area that is, make a baby step to make a change, and those 15 minutes of time really add up. You've spent an hour if you've done it for 4 days, and just under 2 hours a week, and it really makes a change. And in my personal life right now, I'm committing to spend 1% of my day doing yoga, and I'm already up to 57 days in a row. So like if you can gamify it a bit through a habit tracking app, that might help you to keep the motivation going on. But it's also important to talk to the other people in your home and your space as well. I'd encourage, and with my clients and even with my husband, we both do that Wheel of Home and Wheel of Life exercise together. December, January time. And it's interesting to see how we both view different aspects of our life. Obviously, there's some separate aspects that we're not doing everything together, but our home that we share together, we actually have different views of how we score that. And then we talk about what changes we want to make, and make a plan for physical changes to those spaces or renos or things we're going to get rid of. But that communication step is the key thing for couples.
Yeah, we went through our garage recently and it had got to like all of those kind of dark words that you use, like overwhelming, stressful, frustrating. And like it was at the point where it's like it was a struggle to park the car in there. And then it was definitely a struggle to park the car in there and then like try and get groceries out of the car or the dog out of the car or any like luggage or anything like that. And it was like, it was in that state for quite a few months. Like we've only been in our place about a year now, and there was still things from our move that were like, we haven't opened this, we haven't landed this in an intentional spot. It's just here. And I think sometimes we overestimate how long those things might take. So we spent probably 2.5 hours together one weekend afternoon, and it's totally transformed, totally different space. And in my head, I was like, it's going to take all weekend and it's going to consume this whole thing and it's going to be this awful process. And it actually just wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't that at all.
You would have each spent more than 2.5 hours thinking about that and going, oh, every time you drive into that garage.
It's annoying me.
Yeah. And just starting is that key element there, and building that momentum and keeping going and making some tough choices. Like we live in a society where there's so much stuff. We think back to our parents or particularly our grandparents' eras in that depression. They held on to everything because there wasn't enough money or not as much money around. My mum made my clothes because it was cheaper to make clothes back then than it is now. But it was, there was more quality things. But with the advent of department stores or Kmart's and Targets, you can refit your whole house every couple of months. And the marketing push is to buy more. But we actually feel more contented when we're surrounded by the things we actually love rather than making those quick dopamine hit purchases. So really, stop, focus, notice what you love in your home. And I'm a big advocate for surrounding yourselves with the things you truly love. My husband's a massive Elvis fan, and we renewed our 10-year wedding anniversary vows with an Elvis impersonator at the Parks Elvis Festival.
Yes. Okay, so ours is almost similar. This is on our vision board, but we want to do it in Vegas.
And we were hoping to do it for 10 years. That was originally the vision, but this year last year wasn't quite going to work for us. So
but
I think it'll be 20 years maybe.
I'm not an Elvis fan, but it's also honouring what your partner loves as well. But it was an absolute highlight, and I am so grateful. And we had our kids standing next to us for our 10-year wedding anniversary as well. So that was exciting too. But like, he's got Elvis memorabilia around the house. I've got some cross-stitch quotes that I've made up. So really make sure you have things in your home that you truly love, and get those sentimental things out of those boxes and display them. If you love them enough to keep them, try and make them visible and use them.
Yeah, I really like that you've said that, because a lot of my favorite things in our home are things that we've collected on our travels. And I think when I make purchases when we're traveling, it's very, very considered, because I'm like, am I going to be able to fit this in my luggage? Am I willing to haul this through many airports, Ubers, whatever, to get this home? Am I willing to have a fight with customs about this thing that I want to bring into my home? We're on a non-visual medium, but Bridget, you'll be able to see the Toy Story figures behind me. And I love these characters, and they bring me so much joy. And they're kids' toys, but they've been collected from all of the Disneylands around the world. So they're super special to me. They're on display, and because they sit behind me, it's frequent that someone I'm meeting with is like, so what's up with this Toy Story characters? Like, tell me about that. You don't have kids. Yeah. Why have you got toys? So I really love that, and being considered about what we're surrounding ourselves with.
Yeah, I've got my wedding veil behind me here and my 30th dress. So I made a choice that I don't have my wedding dress anymore, and I donated it somewhere called Angel Gowns, and they make it into gowns for families that have lost babies. Because when I stopped focused on it, I made the choice. It was living in a cupboard for 7 years and I wasn't going to use it, but I wanted to keep the veil that is smaller. I can display. My daughter may wear that, but she's not likely to wear the dress. So everything I suggest is things that work for me, and people decide they may want to keep their dress and wear it more often. But yeah, how can you have it so maybe you do grab out your veil and your wedding jewelry and have it so you can see it more often?
I love that. We've got a beautiful shadow box frame that one of our friends put together for us with all of our bits and pieces from our wedding, and we've got it on display. It's really nice. It's got even our invitation in it, and like the horseshoes that people gave me for good luck. Yeah, so it's nice to have it on display, and then when people come into our home, they can see part of that day. But I wanted to go back to something that you were saying about, that depression era, holding on to things. Nath, I'm about to throw you under the bus. I love you. But Nath grew up on like not just a farm, but like a farm with multiple sheds, multiple paddocks, multiple adjoining homes. And there's just so much space to store whatever you want. You can put whatever you want in the shed. You can just put it in the shed. Just put it in the shed. And now we don't live on the farm. We live in a small apartment in an inner city suburb, and Nath has definitely learned been influenced. Yes.
Some of your subliminal programming.
Yes,
just put it in the shed.
Is a leaning towards hoarding, a strong leaning towards hoarding. And this is I'm playing light about it and I'm joking about it because I feel like Nath has done a lot of internal work around this sort of stuff and moving from scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, and like, why is it that I feel like I need to hold on to this random thing? But a few years ago, I feel like this is a real tension point for us, and it was really hard to get Nath to let go of things that he still hadn't used in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
There's still some things that I wish were not here, but he's made progress. So I'm wondering if you could go back and talk to Sammy and Nath 5 years ago and say, hey, this is causing some tension in your relationship and in your home. What would have you told us?
Yeah, and it does come down to that compromise as well. Like we've both, if you're particularly on different levels, like complete opposites. And I still joke that I'm the minimalist and my husband's the maximalist, and he has a lot more, but we come to that medium. And it is really about that communication. What are the true things that you truly love versus the things you like, and both agreeing we're both going to keep those things that we truly love, and to think about a staged approach to letting go of some things. And we do that quite often in wardrobes, that, okay, we're holding on to probably 80% of our wardrobe that we're not wearing all the time, but let's stop, focus, notice, and see what we're actually using and see if we can slowly let go of some of those things, because we don't want to flip things overnight, because a lot of things are ingrained habits. Our brain is actually designed that we're probably not even thinking. It's like, all right, we'll go put that in the shed or the cupboard or something. But when space is limited and we are in a home that we want to enjoy ourselves in and not be seeing a lot of visual clutter that takes up our time to reorganize and things like that, we need to make some choices, and that can be challenging, but you're hopefully wanting to be a couple that's together for a long time, so we need to agree what the boundaries are and what the physical space boundaries are in our home, that we're going to keep this amount of space for this type of thing. But when it becomes more than that, we need to make some choices of what stays and goes. We do that now with our kids as well. I've got one child that loves holding on to things and one that's not attached to things. So we've done the love languages test with ourselves and partners and our kids as well. And one loves receiving gifts and one gifts giving 0%. And we have a space boundary of how much trinkets, I call it clutter, but to her, the trinkets that she wants to keep. And we need to do that as adults as well. What's the space boundary that we can put in place, that we can have that amount of stuff, but then we need to make space for other things in our life as well. So that communication, compromise, and boundaries are probably the key tips.
Yeah, I love that idea of a space boundary. But I also, that's something you said, I think it might have even been pre-interview, but you said something about that it doesn't really matter how much space you've got, even if you've got the biggest house in the world, it takes effort and energy to maintain all of that as well and to look after that space. And yeah, it doesn't really matter how much space or how much stuff you have, you still need to actually look after that space too.
Yeah. And we've come out of being in a caravan for 2.5 weeks. So we've been in a house that's probably just a little bit bigger than the room that I'm sitting in now. So I talk about everyday clutter and accumulated clutter. So there's stuff that we're always going to have to tidy. There's always going to be food that needs to be taken out of cupboards and fridges. There's always going to be plates we need to wash and tidy, clothes that need to be washed, and we need to have some space to consume food and enjoy our life. So that's always going to be something we need to plan into our life to maintain. But then we have accumulated clutter, which is that box of trophies that you've probably brought over to Sydney that have never opened or something like that, or the stuff that just gets popped into the shed to be dealt with at another time. So, and we do have different amount of space for that amount of accumulated clutter we can keep behind. But we need to make a plan and get the people that live in the home. So for us, my husband and I, and now our older kids, we each need to take responsibility for maintaining those things, the everyday and accumulated clutter, and have a system in place to manage it. So we try and get everything done Monday to Friday afternoon, so we're not spending our weekend doing cleaning and washing, so we can spend that time collecting moments as a family. So we'll break down those tasks and keeping our house tidy into 15-minute blocks, so 1% of our day, morning and night. And it's not my sole responsibility as the wife and mum to do all that cleaning. It's about communicating, and my husband takes the lead on some things, I take the lead on others, and that can flip around depending on obviously seeding and harvest time on a farm. He's less available, and then when in my business I'm doing launches or things like that, he'll take on more of that load as well. But our kids are capable of using the washing machine and they're making half of the mess. So let's teach everyone to be capable adults, because that's the role of a parent.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I really like that idea of the 15-minute tidy that you were talking about. So I think it was during lockdown that our place was getting out of control. We were living on top of each other.
Hold on. You're missing the step from Sammy used to work at home alone in her very controlled space set up perfectly for her, and then Nathan was there all of the time.
Sorry. I was
So continue the story now with that other bit of context.
So we were living on top of each other in a 2-bedroom apartment with a dog, and chaos was ensuing. And so we came up with this fun little concept called a 2-song tidy.
Yes.
So we would throw two songs on Spotify or something. We'd pick one each.
And make them show down against each other.
Yeah, make them show down against each other.
We'd normally pick a category like,
90s pop or something.
Yeah,
or
boy band or
whatever it was. Yeah.
Emo punk or
So we would pick 2 songs, we'd cue them up on Spotify, we'd hit play, and then we would just blast around the house tidying up and cleaning up as much stuff as we could in those 2 songs. And then when the songs were over, we would stop. Wherever we kind of got to, we would stop there. Well, you would normally finish off the one tiny thing you got, but essentially stop there. And it was so amazing when you've set yourself that tiny little time limit, how much you can actually get done and how much of an impact it makes.
100%. We do the same thing. We have a mental load meeting on Sunday to plan out what everyone's doing for the week ahead with their calendars, who's doing kid pickup, drop off, who's doing food cooking, food shopping, all that. So that is all the mental load that particularly sometimes women can hold on to a bit more than men, but being able to verbalize that and having a sit down with your partner, it's a key strategy to come together as a team and potentially show your partner all the things that you're having to think about to run a home. And then we do make sure we've got washing done, so ourselves and kids have got clean uniforms, and then what we do is similar, the three songs on Spotify. So as a family of 4, we can spend 15 minutes, but technically we're tidying the house for collective over for an hour, but with 4 of us we can do it in 15 minutes. So it gives everyone ownership over putting the things away that are in the home, and then we finish with some family fun, so playing a board game or spending some time together. And then I will generally finish my Sunday with some self-care as well, even if it's just a peppermint tea and doing some cross stitch or some yoga or something like that. So making sure we're all working together to get everything done. But really having that timer is a really good strategy for making you do things quicker as well. You probably got more done when you had your 2 songs on rather than going, oh, we've got to tidy up. And yeah, it's got a positive spin. You can be dancing around. The beat makes you go a little bit faster. So definitely encourage people to pop that Spotify song on and do it together.
And putting like the constraint around it, right? Because if someone called you and was like, hey, I'm on my way, I'm just going to pop over, you'd be like, what can I quickly do in the time that they're about to arrive into my space, and what do I really not want left on the table or whatever? It is. It's like, you know, what is it? Is it Murphy's Law? Like things will expand to the time that you give them. Yeah. So how much time do you want to spend cleaning? Yeah. Not much. Put a timer in.
Yeah, but the less stuff you physically have in your home, the quicker it will be to tidy. So for us, we're a family of 4. So we actually only have 8 plates, 8 bowls, 8 spoons, knives and things available every day. And then we keep 12 stored away in our car shed because we love entertaining. But when I stop, focus, notice, when we have availability of 20 plates and 20 cups, our family somehow uses 20 plates and 20 cups in a day. But if you have less available, if you truly need that 9th plate or 9th cup, someone has to do a quick wash. So there's not building up and it's not making that visual clutter on the kitchen bench. So stop, focus, notice and see what some of those strategies are you can implement in your home.
I love that. So what's on the agenda for your Sunday night meeting? You mentioned a couple of things there. Can you run us through it?
Yes. So the first thing is to look at the calendar. So my husband's farm calendar and my work calendar. I do some employee work as grant writing plus my own business. And then for us, we've got kids now, so we need to consider what sporting and kid commitments there are there. So we're all on the same page about what needs to happen, who needs to do a bus drop off or pick up, what me time we've each got. My husband plays football, and then I'm going to actually incorporate some more Pilates and things into my day, but that will involve some swapping over of who's looking after kids at that time. So really audit your calendar and see what's coming up and make sure there is some couple time and some individual time for yourself in your week. And then for us, we look at our calendar and see what meals we can have and make so we can save some money, that we plan out 5 meals a week, and then there's normally a leftover or something comes up and we can go out and catch up with friends or grab something from the freezer. But we plan those meals so we're not making a roast at 8 o'clock at night. If we've got a sporting commitment night, we're choosing the frozen spaghetti bolognese and a quick pasta to cook up. And then someone's doing a food shop potentially on a Sunday or Monday, depending on how much food we've got left in our fridge. We're making sure the washing's up to date. So again, we try and do washing Monday to Friday morning, so we're not doing it on the weekend, but making sure everyone's got uniforms ready to go. We do that house reset where we spend the 15 minutes, the 4 of us, resetting the house if we've got it in a bit of a mess over the weekend. And then there's some form of family fun, to a bit of reward after doing some of the hard work there. So yeah, that's what our mental load meeting or a Step Me Up Sunday plan looks like for our family. So we can do the thinking on the Sunday versus doing that every day throughout the week. So it's really a good way to condense the thinking to free up your mind during the week.
Yeah, I love that. Ours is very, very similar. We have a couple of other extra things. We talk about money, where we open up our banking app and go, are we on track, off track? Is there anything we need to amend?
Is there anything we need to consider for the week as well? Like, is there any expenses coming up that we need to look at?
And we talk about sex.
Yes.
What are we liking? What are we not liking? What do we need more of? What do we need less of?
Yeah.
We talk about what can I appreciate you for, a moment of gratitude. And then, is there anything you would like me to apologize for? Is there something that's happened this week that we haven't had the time or energy, or it wasn't the right place to debrief on? Yeah. And is it
great? Yeah.
And that's been a really good one for us because it kind of allows us to prevent resentment in our relationship.
Definitely, yeah. I love those. I might have to add them into our mental
Maybe you'll
load meeting.
you can have the sex chat maybe after the kids have
Yes.
dismissed
That's
themselves.
after puzzle time. Yeah.
But yeah, love is my word for 2023. So I'm putting a love lens over all our choices of what we're doing in our life. There'll be some tough love in there as well, but yeah, to make sure there's some self-love in there with my health and looking after our relationships with each individual child in our husband-wife relationship and friends, and making sure everything in my business I'm doing that I love, and really making sure, so love is a big part of 2023 for us.
Yeah,
beautiful.
So Nathan and I talk about having like a humming household, and that's kind of one that runs with the least amount of effort as required. So you're not spinning your wheels on stuff, and you're not taking that awkward trip to the supermarket midweek because you need one ingredient, and then that takes 15 minutes there, 15 minutes back, 15 minutes in the store, and that's 45 minutes from your week that you've lost because of poor planning. So we're really a strong advocate for what can we automate, what can we systemize, what can we delegate, what can we eliminate. And a big one for us has been putting as many things as we can possibly find on subscription services. So we have a lot of things that just arrive, that mental load once to organize the subscription, and then it just comes. And like coffee beans, washing powder, toilet paper, dog food, there's alcohol, like there's a lot. But I'm curious, like, have you got a handful of tips that you can share to help make that humming household happen with less effort?
Yeah, and to be aware of what you want your humming household to look like. So I talk about being clear of what you want your version of a decluttered home and life to look like is the first step to work out what you need to do to automate, and be aware of what's coming in and out of your home. We do so much on autopilot that we don't even think about what's coming in. So that automation is a key step there. And I'm a big believer in using that Google Calendar for me that can be transferred across all your devices, and putting everything in there so you're all aware of what's happening. So you are spending your time doing the things you want. We're on a farm, so our drive definitely into the supermarket is something I do not want to do. So for us, we're really bundling all those tasks. If it doesn't actually have to happen today, it can wait till we're doing a town run as such. But people in the city can do the same thing. You don't need to duck down to the shop for that one thing. Use that Sunday or whatever day of the week it works for you to plan out what your meals are going to look like. And I'm a big fan of Google, and there's been plenty of times when we're missing an ingredient and I've said, Google, what's an alternative for this? And you'd be so surprised that you probably don't actually need that ingredient, and you can use something you already have in your home as well. So use the technology that you have available to you. Shared lists in your phones, so when someone's shopping, you can add an extra ingredient to the shopping list as well. One person doesn't need to be doing all the things. You can work together, and someone can take a lead on food shopping one week potentially, and someone can do the next one there. But we're a big believer in planning out fun into our lives as well. We can get caught up with all the mundane things that need to be done, the cooking, the washing and things like that. But we'll talk to our kids and plan out an annual family holiday. And that's how we ended up at the park's Elvis Festival. It started when we said to the kids, what do you want to do, when they were 3 and 5, and they wanted to see snow. So we saved up for 18 months to go the snow, and then coming home from the snow, we asked them what they wanted to do next, and they wanted to see a crocodile. So the year later, we went up to Darwin, and when we were up there, I said to my husband, there's this Elvis Parks festival. Would you like to do that as the next one? And we lucked out. That was January 2020. So we were able to sneak that in for our 2020 holiday. But we also do monthly family fun time as well. So the 24th of every month, regardless if it's a weekday or weekend, we do something as a family as well. So we're adding elements of anticipation, things to look forward to, also things to save up for, so we're not making those frivolous purchases throughout the year as well. So we talk to our kids about, we may not have as much takeaway as your friends do, because we're using that money, putting it away every fortnight. So we do have our holiday fund for when we go on holidays. We can enjoy ourselves and collect more of those moments, not things, because there's so much stuff already out in the world.
Absolutely. Bridget, thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit about how you make your humming household work and, you know, intervening while I drag Nathan for being a hoarder. No, we've come a long way, and I'm excited to see what our next evolution in this is, because from when we first started living together to how we run our household now is worlds apart, and it's continued to evolve and get better and better every year. And I think it can do that if you prioritize it and you want it to be better, and you seek those opportunities and take that 14 point something minutes.
14.4 minutes. Yep.
Yeah, to make it even better. So thank you. To say thank you, we have saved 1 square metre of rainforest here in Australia at the Daintree. So that's been made possible by our giving partner, Buy One, Give One. So thank you so much for making that possible.
Wonderful. Yes, I love that little thing that part of your podcast. So that's a wonderful little bonus there.
No worries. So, Bridget, if people want to connect with you or learn a little bit more or get a few more tips on how to declutter their lives, how can they do that?
Yeah, follow along on Instagram. I'm b.simplyfree on Instagram, and my favorite place is stories. You get a lot of the behind the scenes, and I have lots let's be real posts on there, because it's not about being perfect, about taking those baby steps to make change. And I mentioned that Wheel of Life and Wheel of Home, and if anyone wants to use those worksheets, just go to besimplyfree.com.au/a-workbook, and you can download that and make a start of seeing where you are now and where you want to focus your first step of decluttering your home and life with there. So yeah, I'd love to see more people really taking the time to plan out what their version of a decluttered life looks like.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bridget.
Thank you.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.